of Irvingman.
For reasons I can't fathom, we're starting with narration.
Can you imagine cub reporter Jimmy Olsen reading the riot act to editor Perry White?
White, when I can't rely on you to do a simple thing like going out for sandwiches.
I'm sorry, sir. It won't happen again. Believe me, it won't happen again.
Since I just watched him do it, yeah, I can kind of imagine it. Turns out Perry's having a nightmare.
It all began the night Perry White had an attack of insomnia. He tried counting sheep.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But it did no good.
5 million. 5 million and 1. 5 million and 2.
If he counted that many sheep, I figure he's been absent from work for about 3 days. Time to try a snack.
There was a cold turkey leg in the refrigerator. Also, some leftover clam chowder. And all sorts of other tidbits, which he topped off with a cigar.
If he wasn't having nightmares before, that should do it.
And then suddenly it was bright daylight. He realized he was late.
Yeah, about 3 days late. I already mentioned that.
He shaved, showered, and dressed.
Thankfully, we don't get to watch. But when he gets to the planet, some guy is taking his nameplate off the door.
Who told you to do such a ridiculous thing?
Turns out the stockholders fired him. It was only then that he realized now he couldn't afford a new hat.
Superman.
Oh, so it's you, is it? What's the big idea? Well, actually, Mr. White, it was your own idea.
Some months ago, the city had discussed having a boys' day, and Perry was one of the biggest cheerleaders. So as of right now, Jimmy Olsen is the editor-in-chief. And don't call him chief.
Now listen to me. Talking about these things is one thing, but actually doing them is absolutely silly.
Talking about things is fine, but doing them isn't. With that attitude, he should be in politics.
Okay. I'll be in the city room if you want me. Chief?
Don't call me chief.
Told you.
But if he thinks I'm going to sit around here for the next 24 hours doing nothing, he's just as wrong as Mr. White is.
You mean you're really going to be boss?
You bet. And seeing as how there aren't any good stories coming in, I'm going to make one.
Well, like how?
Do you remember Legs Leamy?
Well, sure. He was the chief suspect in that $2 million armored car holdup about 5 or 6 years ago.
Except he was never convicted. And it was 7 years ago, which means in 24 hours, the statute of limitations runs out on the crime, and he's home free with the $2 million. Jimmy's not going to let that happen.
Ferret-like investigation work on the part of James Olsen, editor of the Daily Planet, has turned up new evidence which may, at the last minute, convict the notorious Legs Leamy before the 7 years statute of limitations allows this dangerous public enemy to walk the streets a guilty but free man.
He's furious. If this kid really has turned up new evidence, they have to get to him and squelch it real quick. Jimmy doesn't have any new evidence. The idea was to smoke Lemmy out and get him to make a mistake while he and Lois worked their way through all the files from the crime and the trial. Clark and Perry are concerned that Jimmy may have stuck his neck out a little too far.
When you stick your neck out, you know it can happen, don't you?
You mean like what happened to the turkey on Thanksgiving Day?
That's what I mean.
That's right, Jim. You're boss today, but Perry White comes back tomorrow. He could fire you for running a phony story.
But, golly, Mr. Kent, the chief is always talking about aggressive journalism, getting behind the story.
With the intercom turned on, at least they can listen in and find out what the Daily Planet's brilliant young editor is coming up with.
Daily Planet and its brilliant young editor never rest, Miss Lane. I'll see Legs Leamy in jail if it's the last thing I do.
And it may well be the last thing you do, pal.
Legs Leamy.
Great Caesar's ghost.
That's a bit more than they expected to hear. One of those goons is getting a Tommy gun out, and there's not a blasted thing anybody can do about it because Clark and Perry don't dare burst in for fear someone will get shot. What about Superman?
I don't think even Superman could help you right now. He could break in there and take those two thugs, but meanwhile, Lois and Jimmy might get hurt.
Because while Superman can type at practically the speed of light, he's a little more sluggish with all that walking and running stuff. Legs wants to know about the new evidence. Jimmy says, I don't have any. It was a phony story. Legs isn't buying it, but he says it doesn't make any difference anyway.
Besides, it don't make no difference anyways.
You don't?
My mistake. It don't make no difference anyway. He says we're all staying right here tonight, and as long as nobody bothers us, we'll all walk out in the morning, after the statute of limitations has run out. It won't occur to him that they now have him dead to rights on a kidnapping charge, and it's easy enough to have the police waiting for him, Toots, no, I'm not asking, and the other guy at the front door. Clark has a similar idea, and the next thing Legs knows, the block is surrounded by police. He says, so what? After midnight, we walk out free. Lois says, yeah, and then they grab you on a gun charge.
She's right. Why didn't one of you lugs think about that?
You're supposed to be the brains, Legs. Why didn't you think of it?
Oh, shut up.
Are you sure these guys aren't the Three Stooges in disguise? I'm finding it hard to believe this three-way brain trust was able to pull off a $2 million heist without stepping on each other.
So, the worst we draw is a year on a gun rap, instead of 20 to 30 for that armed robbery. Then we're out. We still got the $2 million.
You mean you've actually got the $2 million?
With you?
Right here, in this bag.
He's walking around with it in that bag. He's got the 1954 equivalent of $17 million in that bag. And he's the brains.
What's so funny?
Well, for Pete's sake, you don't think they're gonna let you keep it, do you?
You mean they really won't let us keep it, Legs?
It's ours. We stole it, didn't we?
And now we see why he's the brains. If they pool their resources, these two have just enough brain cells to keep breathing.
If we don't walk out of here tomorrow morning without being pinched and with the dough, a certain smart aleck genius boy type editor ain't never going no place again, ever.
If the cops pinch you at the door and take the dough, you ain't gonna be in no shape to do nothing to no editor and nobody else, you dumb lug. There's nothing to do but just go with it.
Anybody for sandwiches?
Sure, kid, sure. Like they say in the books, the condemned man ate a hearty sandwich.
Hello, Gertrude. Will you please tell tell White to send some sandwiches in here. And tell him to hurry.
He didn't ask what kind because 1954 was so long ago the sandwich had only recently been invented and there was only one kind. As he saw, it did make ordering really easy. Oh, what kind was it? I'm afraid that information is lost somewhere in the mists of time. Legs is afraid the sandwiches are poisoned and throws them over the balcony. He is really losing it. Lois is admiring Toots's machine gun, which he named Betsy.
You must be strong. Why, I bet I couldn't even lift it.
Sure you could. Betsy ain't heavy. Here, see?
Don't anybody move.
Toots told her that's the only gun they have. Everybody knows Lois isn't the type who could shoot someone, but she empties the gun into the ceiling. Unfortunately, Legs produces a pistol and we're right back where we started. How about we try a little divide and conquer?
Soon as I get through splitting this up, boys, we each grab a stack. In 15 minutes, we walk out of here free as birds.
Excuse me, Mr. Legs, but you just made a mistake. You put an extra one into your pile.
Yeah, so I did. Imagine that. I don't know what I'd do without you, kid.
Neither do we. Here, that's for keeping him honest.
Well, it made him $100 if nothing else. Why do I get the feeling Legs is trying to do that old trick? 1 for you, 1 for me. 2 for you, 1, 2 for me. 3 for you, 1, 2...
Hey, Miss Lane, does the serial number 69296970G mean anything to you?
It sure does. Those files we went through. That was one of the listed serial numbers on the stolen bills.
So what?
So this money is all the evidence they need to send you guys up the river.
Oh, no.
What? Don't you memorize the serial number of every bill you've ever looked at or read about in some case file? I thought everybody did.
Thanks, kid. I didn't know whether they had those numbers or not. So now I quit being nice. One phony move out of you and your number's up.
I can just see the headlines tomorrow. Boy editor opens big mouth once too often.
That was why I didn't comment on that. Jimmy did.
Well, I can't think of anything cooped up here. Maybe some fresh air will give me an idea.
Wait, I'll go with you.
No, someone ought to stay here.
I'm just the office boy, remember?
That's right, you are, so I'll make it an order. Stay here.
By the way, Perry, once this is all over and you're the editor again, everybody's calling out sick. Did you ever wonder why he does that? Takes his glasses off before he goes in? Well, see, his eyes are perfect, but those glasses are a real prescription in case anybody takes a close look. He can't read the sign on the door until he takes them off. He changes to Superman and speeds to a hospital.
It's a bit unusual, but seeing as how it's you, Superman, I suppose it'll be all right.
Thank you, Doctor. It's very urgent or I wouldn't have asked.
This should do the trick. It's a new type. Very effective but harmless. No odor, no bad after effects.
I think we can guess what it's a new type of. How's he planned to deliver it? Through the heat vent, of course. He pours a bunch on a rag and puts it in the duct labeled editor's office. Because when they build these buildings, they do that at the Daily Planet. Don't ask me about anywhere else because I don't know. Before we know it, everybody's falling asleep. Even Betsy's feeling drowsy. Clark, Perry, and the police will nab Legs and his men just in the nick of time, and as Jimmy said, the money is enough to put them all away for a very long time. And I'm still amazed that nobody figured out that even if it wasn't, they have a ready-made kidnapping charge right here. What else would you call this? Well, today we'd call it a hostage situation and call in a SWAT team to mow everybody down. But in 1954, it qualified as a simple kidnapping, the kind that gets you 10 years in a place you really don't want to be.
What happened?
That's what we'd like to know. Whatever made you all go to sleep?
Ask Jimmy.
Oh, it was merely a matter of the power of suggestion. I knew if they saw me yawning and falling asleep, their subconscious libido would force a chain reaction into their cerebellum, inducing involuntary slumber.
If I were you, I'd write that up and submit it to a scientific journal. You may be onto something. The mayor and the chief of police are here to oversee the arrest personally since it's the most important arrest of the year.
Take over, Chief. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure glad they did. I have a feeling ordinary cops might have let those guys get away. And it's amazing to me how every boy who took over an office today is at least 25 years old. Boyhood lasted a lot longer back then, I think. Jimmy's character on this show was popular enough that later in 1954, DC Comics gave him his own title, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. The comic ran through 1974 and was almost as popular as the Superman title itself. Funny thing, Perry never got his own comic. I wonder why.
I can't believe it. I must go home and go to bed. So that when I wake up, I'll realize this whole thing never happened.
Just one of life's little mysteries, I guess.
Thanks for watching, kids. And remember, clicking that like button is cool. Subscribing is even cooler. Leaving a comment is as cool as the coolest person you know. And becoming a patron makes you almost just like Superman. So don't hesitate. Do it today. Until next time.